that black center is left. Mm-hmm. So Heliopsis is something that has been kind of taking that place, that area. And gold sunstruck, has a speckled leaf. The speckled leaf is very, very pronounced. Mm-hmm. It's very white and light green. So that's how I always feel about that, as far as like just a plant that came along. It's like, wow, look at that. That turns heads. That's, there's always like a petunia they're coming out with now, the trailing petunia, the big aggressive hanging basket petunia that is the color, the bloom themselves is. Yeah. There's so many of them, and someone might come in looking for this particular one. Like, well, I don't have that name, but this one looks identical.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of that going on. In the perennial world, sometimes there's just a lot, like a bunch of garden phlox and things that are now, air quotes, resistant to powdery mildew, even though they just get it less. That's basically what it is. But sunstruck was always one that I just, even when we grow it, it's a little bit of a finicky, kind of cranky infant kind of start. But then once it gets established where it is being planted, it's a full sun Heliopsis, beautiful yellow against this white and green speckled backdrop. It's really cool. I wish I could show you a picture on the radio.
Yeah. Well, I wish you could, but it's one of those things. On the note of seeing these things for ourselves, my mother's birthday is coming up in a few weeks, and I was talking to her yesterday, and I said, "What do you want for your birthday?" And she said, "Take me to Stan's." And what's nice about that is, A, I like to take her to Stan's, but B, she probably will see something and go, "I don't know what that is. I want to plant that. I want to try that. What's that? What's this?" And that makes the difference when you're going from a big box store, rather than going to a big box store, you go to a real garden center, and you're going to see things, and you can ask anybody work. Oh, it is gorgeous, isn't it?
It's the speckled leaf,
that's
like a zebra leaf.
Yeah, that's something. That's a beautiful plant, but that's something that people might not know about. If you're an old school gardener, you might not know about it. If you go to Stan's, you're going to notice that and say, "What is that?"
It's so much the fun in our cropping, and I've brought Alyssa's name up a couple times, and it's predominantly just because her and I do crop management together, and one of the fun things I think that kind of attracted Alyssa to this industry, she went to school for banking, but the one thing that attracted her to this industry as what was just her part-time job was exactly what you just said. And what we went to Michigan last year, a whole bunch of us staff went to Michigan and toured gardens,
right,
specifically for that reason. I'm not ever really out to knock the box stores. They do their thing. They kind of get in the usuals and stuff, and you can get some stuff.
Yeah, they kind of have the greatest hits of plantdom.
Yeah, they have the usuals. But the one thing that we're passionate about is we went through all these gardens and went through Michigan and through Chicago area and stuff, and there were takeaways.
Oh, sure.
Takeaways that we brought. We were at a place called Mast, which is a wholesale grower. They don't have a retail presence in this area. They had giant container and field bed trials, and they're kept by, they have like 8 people that are full time. That's what they do, is take care of the gardens. That's it. And when we walked through, we found a New Guinea impatient. New Guinea impatiens are extremely popular for Mother's Day. So I kind of, the segue to that was you come in and shop with your mom. Hanging baskets are giant for Mother's Day week.
Oh, great.
And we've been growing the same New Guinea hanging basket because we plain know how to get a nice product out of it, and why fix it if it ain't broke kind of idea. So while we were at Mast, we found a new genetic of New Guinea impatient, and I actually physically called my ball rep while I'm standing in front of the plants, and I said, "Hey, Clockwork," and he says, "Yeah, they've definitely got that series really nice. You probably want to switch. This is the time to switch." So we, chatted about it. Well, we were driving from place to place. It's like we went through all of Michigan, so like hour and a half to the next stop or whatever.
Sure.
And Alyssa and I were chatting about, man, that was really nice. So we looked through the whole series. I'm like, they have everything we have but salmon. So we'll grow the old salmon. What's the difference, And the product now, we get to see this idea come to fruition. It's fantastic. They're bigger blooms. There's more blooms. It's a more tight. I don't have a very compact, well-branched plant.
Yeah.
So for a hanging basket, so you don't want it all leggy and scraggly and stuff. It's a very tight-grown, compact, which makes the bloom cap on it look phenomenal. But New Guinea impatiens are very, very popular for that morning sun-only area. Doesn't like hot, full, all-day sun. They drink quite a bit when they get a lot of heat. So that plant was kind of we've been doing this one for so long, to jump ship and go to a whole nother series. What if there's a lot of?
Yeah.
So we did learn now that they're earlier. So we're ready for Mother's Day 2 weeks early because those bloom early, but their staying power is great. They keep blooming and blooming. It's not like they're going to go bad, but they're faster. So that they bloom 2 weeks earlier, so they don't take as much time to get to market. So, and then the size of the bloom, the colors, the variations, they're phenomenal. So what we pride ourselves in is kind of doing that homework, even though it takes us a lot of time and effort to go through everything in the crop, and then trying to stay on top of the trends, like the miso or the Dorianthus plant there is just come out of nowhere. It's like cowslip to me. It was
you never heard of it.
It was around
delicious cowslip.
It was around in my grandfather's era. It's just an older plant. That, it's kind of a succulent thing. It grows a little like the wandering Jew plant that the habit does. It gets a little tiny pink bloom on it, but we're almost sold out of it already. We haven't even really started our season because it's a trending thing. I don't know if Martha Stewart talked about it or what. I don't, that it's so hard to predict those trends.
That's all it takes.
But last year we got a lot of people ask for it. I'm like, oh man, this seems to be resurfacing. So we grew it in what we thought, let's grow 100 of it.
Yeah.
They're mostly gone already. So it's so hard to predict that. But watching trends, watching varietal changes, like the whole thing with impatiens. I touched on that on the radio before. They're pretty much the seed producers are just doing away with all the old names, which is kind of a coming of age in the impatiens or change in time. It's kind of a sad point. We grew Accent and Super Elfin and all these varieties that have been around literally my whole life, and now they're extinguishing them. There will be no more because of downy mildew resistance and the strains that come in from Netherlands. The Beacon series and the other one that does extra Amara XDR, the extra disease resistant. Those two are going to be pretty much the only thing you'll find on our bench next year. There's a couple this year that they do not have, like the Star. They do not have that yet in Beacon, but I'm told it's in the pipe for next year. So some of the names that I grew up with will be no more. They're gone. That's happening a lot in poinsettias.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm not a fan of poinsettias from a commercial growing standpoint because they take forever. They are, if you look at them wrong, you could lose your whole crop to fungal whitefly. Yeah. They're very, very prone to things. You really need to be on top of them growing wise. So they're high risk. Low reward because the day after Christmas they have zero value. I mean,
exactly.
It's like a stock crash. Yeah. There's no value to it the day after Christmas.
Yes.
So you don't have that.
It's like a crypto crash.
Yeah, it is. It is like they shut you down. No more crypto after Christmas Day. And the world of poinsettias has been fairly stagnant in my younger years. Now they're seeming to pop up a bunch of varieties all at once that have really reinvented the poinsettia. They actually have a white that is white. Like it doesn't get any whiter. Like when the camera crews do the white balance check, they're looking for this is as white gets. There's two varieties out now, one early smaller, one late taller, that are just pure white and have a very good branching habit and very good rigid stem, which breakage has been a problem in white, whether you know it when you take it out of the store or not. Breakage is a very tender, soft branched plant just by nature. So you have to treat it with kid gloves. This one, it seems to have a tighter branching. It has a stronger stem to it. It's more shorter internode, which means it's more compact between the leaves, and it is brilliant brilliant white.
Yeah.
For decades, white in a poinsettia was truly a yellow. It was kind of it was a cream color.
It's an off-white.
These are now white as white can get. So, and then the other thing that they've bred into them is they start blooming week to two before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And then here's your vocabulary. I always give you vocabulary. The center of the poinsettia is actually the flower. The actual what you see for color is called the bract. It's a modified leaf.
Okay.
It's an attraction to the world of science to pollinate the actual flower, which is the center. The name for that is the cyathea. And the cyathea, when it starts to finish or be done blooming and it drops, it so too decides, let's get rid of the bract. Well, from a commercial standpoint, if you lose your color, bad news.
Yeah.
So the worry is,
unless you're a bee,
right? Unless you're you're looking for that early crop that for the customer at Thanksgiving. Typically, when they bloom in October, you're done. You lose that flower.
Mm-hmm.
The new genetics start blooming a week before Thanksgiving and bloom right through till Easter.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. Right through till Easter. So that fear of timing is gone. So you don't have to special light them and everything. So, not getting into the grower side too much, but just talking about what's hitting the market. I was really shocked at what was presented to us as a commercial grower in the poinsettia world, because it's been fairly like, yep, let's grow that. Same as last year, just it's carbon copy your order. And it wasn't this year at all. We switched it up quite a bit. So the varieties, I actually heard from numerous churches, I don't know what you did with the poinsettias this year, but wow. We didn't grow them any different. It was just it's the genetics behind it. So they're doing a good job with that. That's going on in everything. We did switch up. We actually switched up zucchini this year. Zucchini.
Really?
Yeah.
Good old classic. You can't get rid of them when you have too many zucchini.
I realized I was kind of word vomiting about poinsettias. No one wants to hear that. No one out there wants to think about snow. We're in Erie, so eager to get out to a baseball game and see sun.
We are.
Some of us want a sunburn on our head.
Some of us require the ball cap.
So
all day, every day.
So no one wants to hear about poinsettias. I was just kind of referencing like what's out there, what's new, and then we have to. Our order has to be in by the 1st of May. So that's one thing that has crossed my desk.
But it could be the next trend, though. I mean, we live in this age of influencers, and anything. And in your business better than anybody, really, anything you could wake up and be like, what? Everybody wants these now?
Yeah.
It just happens.
That's how COVID happened for me. I don't know. A little tiny, everybody's like, oh, I remember pre-COVID, whatever. COVID was very, very different for me because my wife went into labor 1 week before COVID was really a thing. It was on the news, like, hey, people are starting to get sick and, we have to watch for this. And of course, it was kind of a like, yeah, whatever at that point.
Like the bird flu and things of years past.
I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then my wife went into, early labor and we went into the NICU and we were in there for 8 days.
Yeah.
And in 8 days, the world and the news and the shutdowns and everything changed. So I ran, I walked, but I walked up State Street to pick up takeout. And they said, you can't come in without a mask. Well, I've been in a hospital for 8 days.
Exactly.
And I was like, since when? What are you talking about? Like, it was like I walked to Mars. And so that's kind of what sometimes the plant material world is like. Like you walked out of the NICU and now there is such a thing as COVID. There's the trends change like that miraculously.
Yeah.
It's happened a lot with interspecific. I might even give you a couple vocabulary words today. Interspecific is something that they're labeling as not. It's kind of a hybrid in the cutting driven
interspecific
world. Yes, interspecific is when they've taken two fairly marked different plants. Like I'm going to use one really big example that people might not even realize that they are interspecific and they don't care. It's just like that's the end result. Interspecific is half, I'm paraphrasing, half ivy geranium, which is a very specific shade-loving geranium that has a very cascading habit, very smooth kind of leaf, not fuzzy like the zonal type of geranium. And it has a fantastic colors, very rich colors in the ivy kind of geranium. Ivy geraniums are a real pain in the neck to grow. They're very, very slow, they hate wet feet. And then the zonal geranium, which is your traditional memoriam pot, you're at the cemetery, very like it's that blaze red.
We've all seen it.
Full sun zonal geranium. Interspecific, there was ivy geranium, zonal geranium. Meet them together. And now you have half ivy and half zonal together, so you get that really crazy rich color, that really dark red, that blood red color, and a very, very vigorous bloom product, and a little bit of a erratic ramble to it. Not in a bad way, like in the way that like when you put a zonal geranium in a basket, it's generally upright. Well, now if you put an interspecific zonal type geranium in a basket, it really kind of fills out, and it'll even like hang to the bottom of the pot.
I love that look. I love that look.
Other thing you get is colors that just never existed in zonal geranium. Well, you're starting to see interspecific things in lots of different things. So that interspecific world of saying, oh, look, we have really good at this and really good at that, like it's happening in the perennials a lot, that they're coming up with, not so much just one thing, like an astilbe, but they're crossing them with things. Not in a bad genetic way. That's where they're getting the interspecific.
Right.
They're not taking the DNA from a raccoon. It's not a GMO by any stretch. But the interspecific world is blowing up all over. So back to, because I know there's probably somebody that's like, wait, hey, you said something about zucchini. So some product out there has become fairly difficult to get or in low supply, whether it be supply chain, labor, whether there's a quarantine somewhere in the world, whether, that genetic was lost to a disease or something, who knows. In the seed world, it's been a couple trying years. Well, one thing that we had Ball, which we're a giant producer of Ball product, Ball 2, Roman numerals, if you're looking it up, Ball 2 was a really, really good zucchini. And if you have a pretty durable bush, a very, very good eating fruit that's pretty disease resistant, like what else are you looking for? Like you can't really, don't fix it if it ain't broke again.
Right.
So Ball 2 had a delay in packing and production, so it wasn't going to make the beginning of the season. So I had the chat with the same rep that I called about Clockwork, and his gentleman's name's Ken. We have a great working relationship, and he's a walking plant genius. I said, Ken, hey, Ball 2 is not going to make it to market. What do you recommend that doesn't break the bank? Because you can go out there and get Maserati seeds that are like small, real kind of eclectic mixes of smaller varieties that the claim to fame that, I don't know, maybe it stir fries itself. I don't know.
Something like that.
And he said, yeah, try Noche. Noche is pretty good. He said it is extremely prolific. I'm like, isn't all zucchini?
Yeah,
he's like, yeah, it is. It's very slow to get big and woody. It stays real nice and culinary. It produces a ton of fruit on it. It's very disease resistant.
Because that's always an issue with, the classic zucchini is when it gets this big inedible.
Yeah, and it starts to change color to,
my dad used to be like, take these and toss them into the woods. That's what I'd have to do when they got like that and let the woodchucks eat them.
Yeah, and the deer.
Deer like them.
Yeah. So they're not very palatable when they get big like that.
No,
but
not
it
at
is,
all.
I mean, a lot of people don't realize it is a summer squash. It'll turn color, it'll get big, it'll get woody kind of, so it's not, but the small tender stuff, we'd like to put it in the spiraler. KitchenAid or whatever, you put the spiraler on, you make zucchini noodles out of them, and you just kind of sear them in the pan a little bit and then cook them slower and sauce them like spaghetti squash.
Yeah.
I love those like that. And that doesn't work real good with those large, really leathery ones. So
you can pan fry them; they just taste awful.
Yeah, the seed is just a little bit more, but he said your customer's going to love Noche. Nobody's going to dislike Noche. So we have kind of a Maserati zucchini now because the Ball 2 was slow to come to, and it did ultimately. So if you want the old zucchini that you've been growing forever, Ball 2 is available. There is nothing wrong with Ball. You can grow acres of Ball 2. Yeah. It is a fantastic.
It'll grow itself, basically.
There is that kind of really specialty Noche that's been going on in a few things. We have a Napa cabbage that we put out that that is supposed to be very, very slow to bolt. Like, I've used that vocabulary word before. If you see things in the garden, mustard is a great example that does it real quick. It likes to grow very cool, very casual. It likes very low stress growing. And when some of the plants like cilantro and the mustard and arugula and some of the plants that like that casual, cool, early season growing see stress, and you let them dry out in a pot once or twice, or we get that heat snap there that we had, 2-3 days of warm weather. Even though we're loving it, those plants aren't acclimated to that quick change. And usually, Mother Nature does not change temperatures like it has been here in Erie. 70, 40, 70, 35. Yeah. You'll see bolting, and that's the plant saying. I'll give it in very people terms. When it gets stressed, it wants to reproduce. It says, I'm probably on my way out. It's the middle of summer. I'm a lettuce that doesn't like heat. Oh, it's hot. I need to proliferate. I'm going to produce seeds.
Right.
So it puts the bloom up so it can therefore do so. So that bolting, it's called, is an issue with things like some of the cabbage and the kale and stuff when they see stress.
Sure.
So this cabbage that we have, I love Napa cabbage.
Me too.
I don't know if your wife uses that in any of her dishes or maybe you even cooked. I don't know.
I have. On occasion.
I love it. Cooks down pretty good. You can slice it real fine. It's that really kind of elongated, tall head, but this stays very small, slow to bolt, very soft, palatable. It's a good Napa cabbage. So we put that on the shelf. There's all kinds of things that we keep chasing. The Prospera basil. Prospera basil is probably, I think I talked about it the very first show, but that's we have other basils. We've grown Caesar over the years and things, but Prospera is of genetic that is staying very compact, very slow to bolt, very well branched and prolific, great for container growing on your back porch, but it's downy mildew and fusarium resistant, which is sometimes things you'll get that you don't even realize what happened. You're just like, oh, my basil kind of pooped out. Like, what's going on? And sometimes downy mildew is an issue with that. Now, if you remember the downy mildew conversation, that's the same kind of disease that got the impatiens that is now resistant.
Right.
Prospera, the interesting, unique thing about that is that it has multiple strains in it. So they have a field-grown, larger version. Like if you want to plant some in the garden because you're going to make a whole bunch of, pesto or something, they make a taller version. They make the compact version, and they make the red version, all Prospera. So it all came from the origin of resistance to fusarium and downy mildew. So they have the three, all Prospera red, Prospera big, Prospera compact, that are all resistant to that. So we're growing that in as well with our other Genovese style traditional basil. Everybody comes in the herb bench. I want to say 80% of all the customers come in for a basil and maybe take something else.
I bet they do.
And then so all the other herbs are kind of complementary to the basil, the parsley, maybe rosemary. Those are the three things that everybody's coming in for. So having something new that is more disease resistant, more resilient, more compact, better branching in basil is a big thing, because everybody that comes in is I don't say everybody, but the vast majority of everybody wants a basil. You can't have a good caprese salad without a basil.
Well, and that's the thing. If you've got really good basil and you put it on your pizza, or you do make pesto with it, it's just such a game changer. The really good fresh basil just transforms the dish.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a parsley too that we're dabbling in a little bit as a little bit of a specialty crop too that you don't have to chop.
Oh,
it is.
Wow.
Vertissimo, I think it's called. If I'm saying that right, I'm sure someone can correct I think it would be Italian.
Yeah.
It's fern leaf. It looks like dill, but it's not. It's parsley, and it has very little firm stem to it. It's resistant to tip burn, which parsley doesn't really do good in aggressive, hot, scorching sun. It's not an arid, loving plant.
Right.
I have it on the northwest corner of my house through a open style clump birch, so it gets sun, but it's kind of hit and miss, pop on, pop off kind of sun. So it does phenomenal there. It's a very mild parsley because of it. It doesn't see that heat. So you'll get a real acrid, real hot tasting, metallic taste out of a lot of things like arugula and parsley and cilantro and things if they're in too much sun.
Yeah.
I think that note that, plants like sun, not necessarily that much sun.
Yeah, very true.
They taste better when they're grown real casual like that. But yeah, the specialty parsley is real fine like dill. So you cut it off and it's already chopped for you.
Perfect.
So you don't even need to chop it up. So all that new stuff is why I started the show talking about we, like Alyssa does. We're passionate about what awesome stuff can we offer now? What can we get out there? So I'd like to think that the difference between us growing 99% of our crop in house, even though it's a very trying undertaking to grow that specialty basil and 20,000 hanging baskets and the new geranium and in a different soil than last year and like all that coming together is very, very trying. I think the end result is so worth it.
Yeah. Give us the hours for stands once again.
Right now, we're Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6, Sunday, 11 to 4. But the Monday of May 1, I think May 1 is a Monday or Tuesday. Right there. So. Somewhere in that ballpark, we'll be going 8 to 8. So spring is coming. When stands goes 8 to 8, you know that the real deal is here.
That's the sign of spring.
Spring has started.
Forget about your robins. Forget about your snow and the daffodils.
I thought maybe it was the Seawolves. Hockey ends and baseball starts, but we've had so many Seawolves games in the snow.
That's right.
That
I'm going to go with stands.
I'm going to say when stands switches 8 to 8, that's when spring's here.
All right. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.